Welcome everyone to the penultimate round of the FIDE Grand Swiss. We have the local hero Nodirbek Abdusattorov there shaking hands with the FIDE president Arkady Dvorkovich. Nodirbek Abdusattorov has been having a pretty decent event by his standards. He has been unbeaten here, wins with Ivic, Abhimanyu Puranik, Amin Tabatabai, and then rest of the games ending in draws. He would definitely be looking at 2 wins in the 2 final games, which could help him to qualify to the candidates and also finish in top 2. That would be a dream come true for all the Uzbek chess fans there. But today he faces a very strong opponent. His opponent is none other than Nihal Sarin, who's playing in this tournament much higher than his rating of 2693. Nihal Sarin has played incredibly well in this event. You can see his performance. He has managed to beat some super strong players, including Parham Maksudlu and also Leon Mendonça, Aram Hakobian, and many others. So he is in great form. And his last round was a loss against Alireza Firouzja. Otherwise, Nihal was leading the tournament. And he will be looking to make a comeback in this game. But how easy is it to come back from a loss? He gets up, puts his jacket on the chair, and takes fort. It's going to be an important game here for both the players. Nihal adjusts his pieces like he always does with both of his hands. And here he plays pawn to e4. And pawn comes up to c5. We have the Sicilian on the board. Knight comes out to f3. Nihal with his customary knight looking backwards. Knight to c6, and now goes for the Rosolimo with bishop b5. This has been one of the main openings in this tournament. e6 played by Nodirbek. You can take on c6. He goes short castles here, and Nodirbek brings his knight to e7. And Nihal brings his rook to e1. The pawn comes up to a6. And now the idea is to maybe drop the bishop, but Nihal takes on c6. He takes the knight. Knight takes on c6. And the idea is to simply push the pawn forward d4. Now you might think that, hey, look, white is given up the bishop pair. Why does he want to open the position? But you also should understand that white is way ahead in development, and so in that sense it makes sense to open up the position. So it's like two sort of rules of chess, or two principles of chess are conflicting against each other. He goes bishop to e7, and now Nihal takes the knight on c6. Nodirbek takes back with the deep pawn. You can trade the queens, but bishop takes and it's around equal. So Nihal brings his queen out and attacks the pawn on g7. Now important moment, if you castle, there is bishop h6, bishop f6, e5. White is winning. Queen d4 still is okay here. He goes queen d4 defending here. Knight comes to d2. And now he castles here. And Nihal comes back with a beautiful move, looking in this direction, also threatening e5. And Nodirbek plays f6, which is not a great move. And already after 12th move, Nihal Sarin has a very fine position. c3 played. Excellent move. And now the queen goes back to c5. But if black gets the move e5, black would be doing very well. But not to be. Nihal Sarin pushes pawn to e5, blocking the e6 pawn. The bishop is bad. Bishop comes to d7. And now knight to b3 could be an idea, attacking the queen here on c5. The queen goes to b6. And Nihal Sarin brings his bishop to h6, threatening a mate in one. Rook comes to f7. It's time to bring the other rook into the game. Rook a d1. Yes, Nihal is doing really well. Now queen c7 is kind of an important move here. But rook d8, a big mistake here by Nodirbek Abdusattorov. Nihal has a huge decisive advantage now if he manages to find pawn takes pawn. Let's see what he does. Pawn takes pawn, bishop takes is forced, and now bishop e3. Oh, he comes back bishop e3 directly. But that's not good because queen c7 is playable. If you had taken here and then played this, then queen cannot go back. And now knight c5. If queen b2, rook d2, doubling the rooks, and it's winning for white. It was an important line, and now Nodirbek gets his queen back to c7. And although Nihal is clearly better here, it's still a fight. Bishop goes to c5, a good move by Nihal Sarin. He's trying to trade off black's good bishop. Bishop comes to c8. And now bishop takes on e7. Queen takes e7. And these are the kinds of positions where you can press endlessly against your opponent. But Nodirbek is not someone whom you can take lightly, because we all remember what he did to Gukesh at the Chennai Olympiad 2022, where he had a lost position out of the early middle game, but then kept defending, and at some point Gukesh lost his patience and lost the game. Here, look at the number of advantages white has. Firstly, a good knight against not so good bishop. The pawn is weak. White's pawn structure is perfect. So many things are flowing in white's favor, but Nodirbek just loves to defend here. He goes queen d4. Queen c7, avoiding the queen trade. And now rook to d1 played. Goes pawn to e5, opening up the bishop. And Nihal comes back. Now, good news for Nodirbek is that his bishop has opened up. He goes bishop f5. And Nihal rook e1. He still will be fighting for the full point here, but it's not going to be easy. 8 minutes to Nihal Sarin. 14 for Nodirbek. He pushes his pawn to c5, gaining more space. And Nihal brings the knight back to d2. He's going to e5, f3 and trying to attack here. By the way, notice you couldn't take the pawn. Rook e6, and there's problem on the back rank. So knight d2, queen d7 played, attacking the knight. Knight goes to f1. You could have gone to f3 here, but then e4 is pretty strong. So knight f1, pawn to e4, and knight comes out to g3. Black goes pawn to h6. And now can we take on if we take on f5, queen f5, can't take on e4 because of queen f2 and checkmate. So h3 played here. The queen goes to f7, pawn to b3, and you can see that Nihal still has this very nice nagging edge here with the pawn on e4 being weak. Rook goes to d1, but the f2 pawn is something that Nodirbek has latched on to. Rook e6, and rook comes to d5. Nihal kind of flowing with his moves here. Queen f6. Knight goes back to f1. King h7. Players rapidly making moves because they have to reach move 40. Queen goes to d2. And now pawn to a5 played. gaining space on the queen side. Knight e3. Nihal reroutes his knight to a better square on e3. Queen comes to f4. Now he plays his pawn to a4. These pawns which are now on light squares could eventually become targets with this bishop. Rook comes to d7. Nodirbek is just so good at defense. You know, look at him there. The focus. This is the kind of focus one needs when one is in a worse position. Bishop comes to f7. Nihal pushes his pawn to c4, still keeping an edge. 40 moves have been completed and h5 played by Nodirbek. Now queen d1. So you can see that Nihal is very good at grinding kind of equal positions. Nodirbek is very good at holding such positions, keep on fighting. And so this is kind of a clash of two amazing players. Queen e5. Rook comes to d7. And black's rook goes to f6. And the queen comes to c2. The idea is to put pressure on the e4 pawn. Bishop comes up to e6. And white's rook comes back to d1. Rook to g6, putting pressure on the g2 point, also threatening bishop takes h3. We have king f1. Nihal trying to get out from there with the king. Black has made enough possibilities for himself that he can create an attack. Queen h2 could be an idea. King e1. Aha, Nihal is actually running away with his king like this. And he's hoping that the king could find a safer shelter on the queen side. Whether that's the case, we will see. Rook d8 check, king h7. And he comes back with the rook to d2. Rook goes to g6. King e2 by Nihal. And queen to f4. He comes back, king e1. And I think Nihal is not going forward with this idea of taking his king to the queen side. He's just repeating here, rook d1, rook f6, and well, it is going to be quite a tough one for Nihal, as he offers a draw after rook d2, and Nodirbek agrees to a draw here. They agree to a draw, and I'm pretty sure that Nihal is unhappy here. And look at Nodirbek, he's just showing you could have, if bishop h6, e takes f6, bishop takes f6, bishop e3, queen b5, knight c5, queen b2. Aha, Nihal had already seen it, and they are discussing this position where queen takes the pawn on b2. And well, I don't know how big of an advantage that is here, but the idea of rook d2, rook d1 should finish it off here. But and yeah, it's one of those blank spots perhaps. And you can see Nodirbek is not convinced. That's the thing about strong players. They understand things so deeply that even if the opponent is fully confident, they have their spidey senses on and they feel like it's something that should have worked. And that should be the case here. But Nihal Sarin, after this important game ends in a draw, he moves on to 6.5 points out of 10. And yeah, he does miss a big opportunity here. He was also clearly winning against Alireza Firouzja, or at least clearly better. So 2 back-to-back games for Nihal against 2 of the best players in the world, where he could have very well scored 2 out of 2, ends in just half point out of 2. That's not a great thing for him, but clearly it shows that Nihal is slowly and steadily becoming one of the strongest chess players in the world.